Saludos everybody, welcome back to Decent Shirt, where we play cards while we wear decent shirts. And for today's video, I have probably my most excited video, most exciting video, that I've ever been, because I was finally able to top a tournament. I've been playing Elestrals for about 2.5 years, and I've been working really hard to do better, and I constantly made a lot of misplays. It was a lot of trial and error, but we finally got there, and I'm so excited to share my deck profile for my top 16 Steam Fire list. Let's talk about the deck. Alright, let's just get to our deck profile, starting with none other than the star of the show, Volcaries. So, Volcaries is an absurd card if you ask me. This is one of the biggest power upgrades to Fire ever. And if you don't know what it does, it basically says that on cast you can search for Volcaries. This is going to be very important for when we get to Firestorm. You can actually use Hestia to special cast it and still get search on. But it doesn't end there, because we also have the ability to use Fire Spirits from our underworld when Hephaestus is played. That means that Volcaries will allow you to use the underworld as a second resource. And in a game like Elestrals, where spirits are the most important thing at the end of the day, that just goes a long way for this deck. It really does mean that Fire is going to be so much versatile, and I just jump at the idea of so many decks that you can build thanks to this new card. And for this deck, although I know that a lot of people are going to think that this is a Fire artifact deck, I'm not going to contest you too much on it, because we do play the Fire artifacts, like the artifact engine in its majority or entirety. This was actually a last minute inclusion, because this was not originally what I had envisioned for this deck. Originally I was playing the Romaco Volcanic Forge Stoke the Forge combo, but once I realized that Volcaries was legal, I decided, you know what, I definitely have to go with the Volcaries. So, as part of the second half of the Fire artifact deck, or what I call Steam, you're going to see why, I play Kinleo. Kinleo is the heart of the deck, and the reason why I wanted to play this deck in the first place. I wanted to abuse Kinleo because Kinleo is a card that is severely underused, and Kinleo is really strong, especially in a meta where we're seeing a lot of different big Ascensions finally see play. Kinleo was a card that really seemed very attractive. And I gotta say that with all the different Nexus banks between the artifacts, the Hephaestus, and in general better Elestrals, this card just felt really good throughout the whole tournament. Now, we do have a Necrof lineup, which is both a Fire Elestral and also Water Elestral, because this card constantly was misenchanted throughout the tournament, and it was great to evade tsunamis. But this card was really good, because even as a properly enchanted one, it allowed me to burn my opponent many times, especially in the heal stall matchup. I was able to win one of those games with the Necrof because I kept burning them while I destroyed their Elestral. So again, really solid card in the deck. It always is very nice to have a 5 attacker in general, because it means that you don't really have to focus so much on the stat modifications, because you just have a really solid Elestral to use. But we do also play Romaco, and this is where we start playing the more conditional Elestrals, or the Elestrals that to me kind of underperformed. Romaco was a card that in theory looked really good in the deck because it allowed you to recycle your artifacts, namely the Poison Tunic, because it was a card that I thought that had a lot of potential with the Volcaries. However, I did not see the Romaco, and the times that I wanted to, that I could have searched it with Smoltuga, I just felt it was better to go for the Kinleo or the Volcaries. So ultimately, I decided to play the Romaco, but it really didn't pan out as well as I thought. We did also play Ash Rabbit, and Ash Rabbit was another card that in theory looked really good, especially due to the side deck. However, it underperformed quite a bit actually. I did play it 1 or 2 times where it was kind of decent, but overall, I really wasn't able to get more value out of the Ash Rabbit as I thought I would, especially with the Kinleos. It really didn't pan out as well as I thought. That being said, our last Fire Elestral is Lavalith. Obviously, you can't have a Fire list without Lavalith. There's no reason why that card is legal that we shouldn't play Lobbolith, and it just was a great card to have throughout the whole tournament. Now, speaking of the other portion of the deck, because this is basically our fire engine. But this deck, what it would be different to other artifact decks where they focus more on the golden, right, or the solar portion, like Heliliths and all those shiz. I decided to go for a different strategy. I decided to go for a water core. Starting off with the Eddies, which is not all that like impressive or special, because basically every deck was playing Eddy. That's a great way to out the 5 defense stats. But it overall was a great card in the deck. But that one was complemented by actually the Galaxies. I decided to play a lineup of 3 Galaxies in this deck because in testing it felt like a great card to evade Poison Tipped Arrow that was on the rise again, and also just to deal with a lot of Elestrals that suddenly started wanting to use water. And in general, it was just another 5 body that allowed me to push pressure on the board while I added my other combo pieces like double carries and the Kinleo. Not to mention that we did play 2 small Tugas. You're gonna notice that I don't play Ash Rabbit in this deck, and the reason for it was basically because I started favoring the Smoltuga as another starter, and I wanted to make the most value out of the Smoltuga. So that's when I started to think, oh, maybe I can play the Galaxies and have that as a pseudo water core, and it worked out to like a charm, honestly, because Smoltuga would search anything. Particularly Volcarius or Kinleo were the main ones that I would search out, and if I was able to protect the Smoltuga for 1 turn or just allow it to stay on the board, Galaxy would then come up and make Smoltuga into an attacker instead of a defensive body. Not only that, against Spectres, which you would say is the worst kind of thing to deal with the Galaxy, a lot of people have been dropping the Spectres or just putting it in the side, which allowed this deck to do really well in the first round or the first match. But also, when I was going up against a Specteris, Smoltuga could then crash with it and then allow the Galaxy to stay on the board, or at worst case scenario, force my opponent to use their Gorgon's Gaze on the Galaxy earlier than usual to then bait it out, and then the Smoltuga would die, but the Galaxy would still stay in play, so it would still put pressure on the opponent the following turn, as long as I was able to protect it, of course. So that was the Elestrals portion side. As you're going to see, I had a big amount of Elestrals in this turn in this deck, but it felt like everything was really solid. I think the only cards I would consider changing would be the Rummacle and the Ash Rabbit. For what? Well, I guess we'll talk about that when we get to the side deck. That being said, we did play double Hephaestus because obviously this is a Volcarius deck, so we do play double Hephaestus. I did not miss the third. I think that 2 was great. 1 would be a little bit too fragile, because if they outed the Hephaestus, or if I just went very low on the Hephaestus, I wanted to be able to go for a second one. And it was never dead, considering that I had Kinleo in most of my matches. So overall, was a great card in the deck, especially because of the new synergies. We did play double Necklace of Harmonia for the Hephaestus, very standard. As you're going to see, the stats on my Elestrals aren't the highest. We got a 4, 3, 3, 2, and even 4s, 2 here. Like, these cards don't have the highest stats, so Necklace of Harmonia allowed me to really protect my Elestrals, and it obviously means that I'm playing none other than the Argo. But before we get to Argo, I do think that one of the biggest cards in this deck, and that I think if revisited, I would add a second Poison Tunic, it would be this card, because honestly, this card was super clutch, both as a defensive option and as an offensive option, like very aggressive, because I would be able to search it with Hephaestus, and Volcarius will allow me to use a Poison Tunic using spirits from the Underworld. That would mean that I would go plus, because that Poison Tunic would be able to burn my opponent, and I wouldn't have to expend anything because of that. And it felt really solid, especially when they would attack, and if I was going up against something that would hit over my defense, the Poison Tunic will allow to really help me with that. Like, for example, Smoltuga, Argo, go Poison Tunic, empower the opponent's Celestial, and allow the Smoltuga to stick another turn. Overall, really solid. I love this deck, and I love the idea of the artifacts mixing so well with the rest of the fire cards. That being said, we do also play the standard triple Ambrosia, obviously. We do have a lot of healing in the deck, but it felt like Ambrosia was really good in the deck, obviously, because it's more healing, and you can never have too much healing. That being said, we did play one Earthquake. We're gonna see that I do not play Resting on Your Laurels, only play Earthquake. Earthquake was a solid no requisite necessary to destroy a card. Sometimes Kinleo would not be available, so Earthquake was a great like backup plan. Now going to the runes, we do have the counter rune Gorgon's Gaze lineup, double Shield, double PTA, double Argo, and double Tsunami. These cards were all really great, and yeah. So this counter rune lineup served me pretty well. I think one of the more standard things is to run 3 Argo, but in testing and in general, looking at the format, it felt like people were already starting to prepare for Argo because it is like the newest, hottest item in the shelves and everybody's playing Argo. So I decided I wanted to lower the amount, even though it has great synergies with carries. But since the deck is not so much centered around bulk carries, though it might look like that, I felt like making it more diversified and having a little bit of all the counter runes felt really good. The only counter rune I really didn't add was Altar of Stars because it felt more like a win more card, and Tsunami felt like it did the same thing but better. And since I already had a pretty big water lineup, why not play double Tsunami? So that is the main deck list. Let's talk about our spirits. Hey guys, hope you're enjoying the video so far. I just wanted to give you a quick reminder that if you're enjoying the video, please like, and if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe so you can keep up all the great content that I'm going to be uploading in this YouTube channel. So let's get back to the video. For our spirit lineup, we did play 12 by Pyros, which you might think it looks a little bit excessive, but honestly it felt really good in going into this tournament. There we go. 12 fire spirits, you can definitely make the case to lower the amount to maybe 11 or 10, but it felt really good because I just wanted the deck to work, be very streamlined, and just so that even when I was going down in spirits late game, that I would still have access to enough by Pyro so that Kinleo would always be live. And sure enough, it felt like no matter how many games I played and no matter how low I went on spirits, I always had enough spirits for Kinleo. So overall, I gotta say this lineup felt really good. Now speaking of sixes, I did play 6 water spirits, and this one is also a card amount that you might, some people might disagree with. They might think it's a little bit too much. I mean, we did play triple Eddies, triple Galaxies, double Smoltukas, and 2 Tsunamis. But looking at all, you should also consider the Necrophos like an honorary water Celestial, in which case I do think that the 6 water spirit was actually justified, and it felt really good throughout the whole tournament. Similar to the fire, it always felt like I never was too low on water spirits, that I didn't have access to water spirits, and I felt really good going with either core depending on what I started in the starting hand. So 6 felt really good in this list, and to round it off, we did have 2 Earth Spirits for our Earthquake, didn't need anything else. And yeah, this spirit lineup isn't anything really that special, but overall it felt like it worked for what it was needed, and in general I was very happy with the spirit count. Let's now take this away and talk about our side deck, which I think that had some ups, some downs, but overall it was really, really good for this tournament in theory. So let's start with these additional spirits. We did play 1 Lycoris and 1 Scepter so that we could play Hurricanes. We did play double Hurricane in our side, basically have access to a Hurricane because we did play a lot of water spirits, and one of the big things that would stop fire, and particularly Kinleo, was Gorgon's Gaze, so Hurricane was a great card to deal with it. I did side it in one of my games, however, I never saw it, so it really didn't come up that often, but I still think it was a good meta call for the tournament. Now, we did also play 2 Spoiled Fruit for the heal control matchup, because usually the way it goes, fire artifacts in general, is that they want to make sure they control the board, because with double carries, right? If you have double carries and you maintain board presence with double carries and they don't out double carries, you're probably going to win, and it becomes a more like a 60-40 matchup. But if they beat double carries, they destroy with Cryoblast or any other removal, that's where the deck starts to kind of fumble, because even though you have Kinleos to help you out many of the healers, it does feel like you are just losing the Spirit War, because you are playing a lot of spirits, even though you have ways to recover it. So Spoiled Fruit helped me a lot in that regard, or in theory it did. I did side it in against Spicy Sausage that was playing heal control. However, unfortunately, it really wasn't enough. I wasn't able to maintain the bulk carries in play throughout those matches, and unfortunately, I was not able to win that match. That was my first loss of the tournament. That being said, we did also play 2 Luminates, which go in tandem with the 2 Heliodus. We only did play 2 Luminates because if we saw it again, we in theory should have ways to recover our spirits, so the second Heliodus would be live. Now, this was the MVP of the side deck, and in the tournament, it just came out super clutch. It won me so many matches because of its great synergy with Volcaries. Being able to use the artifacts and Heliodus being able to be cast really easily. I mean, I don't need to talk about it. Heliodus is one of those cards that has suddenly become one of the top cards in the game, and it's no mystery why. Now, let's talk about Resting on Your Laurels. I did play Resting on Your Laurels. I didn't have it in the main decks because I felt I didn't have space for it. Looking back, I probably could have put it in the main deck for something like the Astravit. But overall, it felt really good. I gotta say, Resting on Your Laurels was one of those other reliable cards that I could side in if I felt like I was going against a Blistrix or an Ascension build deck. And it felt pretty reliable, and it came in really good in the tournament. Now, elephant in the room. I am playing Fire, so the worst kept secret, Fire was going to play Eruption, and yeah, I was no exception to the rule. Overall, I did play the triple Eruptions. However, throughout the tournament, I realized a lot of people were still playing a lot of Thunder, and that a lot of people were preparing for the Eruption. They were playing Magnetic Force Field. So, because of that, I decided that even though I was playing it, I would not play it against, I was playing against a very aggro list like a Blistrix or a Pantera. I did stumble against a win like pile that went into like Doppelgator, but even though I sided it in, I never saw the Eruption, so unfortunately it kind of felt mute. Really did underperform in the one matchup that I wanted it in, but overall still think that it's pretty good. And since we did play the Eruptions and I did play Water and Fire, why not play the Krakatuga? The Krakatuga in theory was really good because it allowed not only to have another way of burning my opponent, it also allowed Eruption to become a destruction card, right? A removal card. But I never felt comfortable bringing it to any of my games, so I think that was on me. I think that looking back, I probably could have added Krakatuga to some of those games, and maybe it would have come in clutch, maybe not. I don't know. Overall, I think that the side deck was pretty solid. It's just a matter of that I didn't really hit those many matchups, or that I just didn't see those cards, even though I sided in. And I sided in every single card in at least one of those matches, with the exception of Krakatuga, that I never felt really comfortable bringing into any of my matchups. Krakatuga was more like for a slow build, right? Maybe against the Sluggles and the Heal Stalls, Krakatuga would have been good. But unfortunately, I was not really confident in bringing it. So, yeah. This was my side deck. I think that it was a decent side deck at the very least, and it worked really well when it needed to, at least with the Heliodus and the Resting on Your Laurels. So now let's head on to my final thoughts. Well, on to my final thoughts. Overall, I was very happy with this deck. This is a deck that I've been working on for many months. Even though it looks like a standard fire artifact with just a water splash in, it was a deck that I took to many locals before I decided to bring it into the tournament. There were many times where I wanted to bring the deck, but ultimately went with a different deck. In general, I was so happy because it's a deck that a lot of people haven't really explored, and I consider myself one of those main people that work with on this kind of list. And shout out to the TailwindZ, that it's a Discord server where we work on water Elestral decks, and they allowed me to place a Steam Deck. I put all my thoughts into that, and I've been working on that deck ever since, honestly. I was really happy with it. Overall, I'm super happy that I performed. There were a lot of misplays that I made. I know that I had one or two salty opponents because I did make some misplays that definitely should have cost me the game, but overall was able to salvage and win the matches. So this is my best performance I've done. 5-2 with a 14th overall record in the tournament. I'm definitely gunning for more. And the best thing is that I did it on the first tournament that we actually qualify for points for the World Championships. So I'm super excited. I earned 50 points, now 200 more points, and I should be able to qualify for Worlds. Here's hoping I can do a great performance in the next tournament. Now, that being said, that will be all from me. Please comment right in the comment section if you liked the video, if there's anything you would change to the list, or whatever you want to do. Please interact with my video, like and subscribe if you haven't already. We're trying to get to 100 subscribers, and the only way to do that is with your help. So that will be all from me. Decent Shirt, sign it out.